Hello there! In this video I'll be going over a print made by my girlfriend from a photo taken by her in Sarajevo, Bosnia. As well as the previous time, I'll be using the same Aqua Brovira fixed grade paper, but this time I'll be concentrating more on how to improve a print by making and refining test strips, as well as dodging and burning various areas. She had already made this print as a practice, and this is a quite good display of what one can do to improve a print, even in some seemingly simple situations. I'll be retracing her steps and try to match her version of the print. As usual, I'll start by making a test strip. Once again, I know this is a rather sensitive paper, so I'll start by modifying my base time to 3 seconds as a starting point. I'll use a relatively large strip of paper to see how both my highlights and shadows behave towards the bottom of the photo. I'm using the same test strip settings as before, 7 strips with half a stop difference. Here's the result. This one seems to be the best choice here. There is plenty of texture in the reflections on the wet street, and its clothes are dark with a hint of texture. I can feel what fabric it was made of. It's easy to recognize the scene as a rainy street, but to make it really stand out you need these subtle touches. You should be able to tell what your subject clothing must have felt like. Reflections should have texture in them to make you feel like you're walking on that rainy street. I want to look further into exposure settings. I haven't done this in the last video, but this time I'll refine my chosen base time before confirming it. You may notice that my settings have changed from the usual ones. These are the settings that come up when I choose refine after the initial test. I can customize them in some options menu, and these are what I've chosen. The most obvious difference is that I will be making 5 test strips now, not 7. Also, they'll be much closer to each other. They'll be only 0.2 stops apart, as I'm trying to fine-tune what I've gotten from the last test. Also, since the point is to nail down the exact time, I have to play around the candidate I have, which means it won't be the shortest exposure time anymore, instead it'll be the one in the middle. 2 of my strips will be exposed longer and 2 of them will be exposed shorter. However, I will change one setting. I usually do the refinement on a separate piece of paper, but since this time the highlight and shadow area are parallel to each other, I can do it in one go. So I'll change this one to how it was before. Here's the refined version, and you can clearly see these are much closer to each other than the first one. The last one seems to be missing the texture I want, so I'll go for this strip, and now I'm ready to expose a full sheet of paper. Here's my first draft. Seems like I nailed the exposure just fine. We should be on pretty close exposure time. However, I can see a few subtle changes. First of all, the buildings to the top left seem much better on her version. Surely she must have done some burning there. Maybe half a stop, not more. Too much and the building will appear dull and grey. This is the first thing I saw, so I'll enter that as a burn action right now. I choose burn from the main menu and press enter. This is the first one, so I'll click enter again, and now I can choose the area I'll be working on and the amount of extra exposure that I need. Now after the main exposure, the timer will stop and remind me to burn the top left corner on both displays. After that, I'll click the expose button again, and it'll do a second exposure with the calculated time. But before doing that, let me examine this a bit further. These reflections are not as strong in my photo compared to hers. This needs some further enhancement. So I'll set up another burn action. This time maybe slightly more, 0.7 steps. I'm not concerned by the sky, so I won't work on that. It's supposed to be a dull, grey sky, so this works fine. Now let me dig in even deeper. Her clothes seem fine, this guy is doing okay, both appear to be unaltered. However, this guy to the left catches my eye. He's too much in the shadows on my version. He is almost the darkest subject in the scene, and it creates a bit of imbalance. That guy should receive slightly less exposure, and exactly for cases like that I've created a dodge function on this timer. It's set up exactly the same as a burn action. I'll just enter 0.3 stops and call it subject B, since the man with the umbrella is the subject A in this case. Now I'm ready to go. What will happen is, instead of reaching the end of the main exposure, the timer will stop and remind me to dodge the subject B. I'll cover that area with this mask and click expose. After that, I'll be reminded to burn the top left corner and then the bottom. Here's the final version. Seems like I've matched my targets quite well. Now you see how I work with more advanced test strip functions, as well as my dodge and burn tools. Keep in mind that I can still make the same adjustments I've done in the previous video, and all my dodge and burn times will be automatically adjusted for changes in magnification, aperture, or maybe a paper change. I won't be doing that in the next video after this. They'll be doing a split grade print, but in the one that comes after that, I'll be using every single technique that I've shown you until then. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope to see you again in another video.